Exposed: how a black CEO's unexpected removal from a flight led to 5B in transformative funding. Jordan Matthews could hardly believe his day had spiraled into chaos. Aboard a domestic flight from San Francisco to Los Angeles, he had spent countless sleepless nights preparing for a pivotal pitch that could change everything for his startup. As the CEO of a tech company, he finally stood at the edge of monumental opportunity, but instead he felt the cold grip of humiliation as he was forcibly removed from the aircraft. A misunderstanding, plagued by racial bias, transformed him from a visionary leader into a spectacle before bewildered passengers. The world around him felt surreal, as eyes, some filled with sympathy, others with contempt, boringly settled on his every move. Jordan's heart raced. How had it come to this? He had built a reputation, working tirelessly to create a company that promised to disrupt an industry long resistant to diversity. He could envision the applause of potential investors, their eager faces welcoming innovation. Yet, in a few short moments, everything had crumbled. Panic clawed at him, a nagging voice whispering doubts. Would investors still see him as a leader after this? In the quiet chaos of the terminal, his mind buzzed with questions of worth, his accomplishments suddenly overshadowed by a singular moment of disgrace. Back in his seat, the tension hadn't dissipated. His face prickled with heat as he clutched his phone, scrolling through the flood of angry tweets with his name at the forefront. This was not just about him anymore. This had ignited a conversation in corporate America that he had longed to instigate. He felt caught between shame and a strange, burgeoning sense of purpose. His pain could resonate, could shed light on the many injustices faced by others. But what if the very fabric of his identity, his professional persona, could unravel amidst growing outrage? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The stakes heightened the moment Ava Thompson entered his life, her very presence casting a shadow of skepticism over his aspirations. Known for championing diversity in tech, she had the power to either elevate his voice or crush his ambitions. With every meeting, she challenged Jordan. Her piercing insight forced him to dissect his motivations. Why had he poured everything into his startup? Was it merely for validation, or to genuinely uplift others? As their discussions became more profound, he felt the weight of every question as if it were a boulder on his back. Every revelation to himself reshaping the very foundation of his purpose. The emotional toll intensified. At times he felt buoyed by clarity, and other moments wanted to sink into despair, mired in doubt. Just as momentum built around his transformative vision, long-buried insecurities slithered back into consciousness. What if the investors didn't care about his story? What if they saw him as just another contender, merely grasping for their attention? On the brink of the most critical pitch that could determine his fate, Jordan felt the air thicken with uncertainty. A clandestine whisper about the investors' ulterior motives slithered through the ether, sending icy tendrils of fear lacing through his resolve. What if this funding came with strings attached, compromising his vision? With a deep breath, he steeled himself, standing at a proverbial cliff, ready to leap into the unknown. The question loomed heavily. Could he transform his moment of humiliation into a legacy that would redefine not only his future, but also that of many aspiring innovators? Jordan stood behind the closed doors of the conference room, his heart pounding in anticipation. The whiteboard loomed large, marked up with diagrams and figures from his countless late-night preparations. Yet now it felt as though the scribbles represented nothing more than brittle glass, a stark reminder of the fragility of his aspirations. He took a deep breath. This was not just another pitch. It was a defining moment in which he would either reclaim his narrative or watch his dreams collapse under the weight of bias and misunderstanding. As the door swung open and he moved forward, each step resonated with conflicting emotions. Confidence battled with a crippling sense of vulnerability. This pitch was more than a funding opportunity. It was a chance to redefine who he was, a chance to transform humiliation into triumph. The investors sat arrayed before him, faces inscrutable. Their reputations for supporting underrepresented voices in tech were well known, yet the sneers that had punctuated his earlier experiences echoed in his mind. What would they see today? A victim or a visionary? "Thank you all for being here," Jordan began, the tremor in his voice a reminder of the stakes at hand. "I want to share with you not just my vision for the future, but the why behind it." With every word, he painted a picture not merely of innovation and profit, but of impact and necessity. The struggle for representation was not just an abstract concept, but a reality that affected lives, including his own. The journey of his startup paralleled the challenges that countless others faced daily. But midway through the presentation, as he watched the investor's eyes narrow, an unexpected silence settled over the room. Doubts crept in again. Were they truly engaged in his vision? Or were they simply assessing the potential of a trendy narrative woven around his personal story? "Jordan," one of the investors, a sharply dressed woman named Karen, interjected, "your story is compelling, but we need to understand how this translates into actionable numbers. What metrics do you have?" Her tone was firm, cutting through the air like a knife. Anxiety surged within him, almost spilling into the open. A tidal wave of fear threatened to wash over his reasoning, but he clung to the realization that this moment held immense power. "The metrics aren't just numbers," he responded, striving to maintain a steady tone. "They are the lives we can change. Our tech is designed to democratize access to resources, leveling the playing field for people from underserved communities." The arguments unfolded like a dance, a push and pull of intent and skepticism. With every question, Ava's teachings resonated at the back of his mind, reminding him to connect with authenticity rather than defensiveness. Yet as he progressed deeper into the presentation, a stark realization washed over him. The stakes went beyond dollars and cents. For the first time, he understood that each answer directly reflected not just his professional identity, but also his personal worth. "I refuse to become a mere statistic," he stated firmly, lifting his chin as he locked eyes with each investor. "My story should not only resonate with you, but spur you to take action. I challenge you to support not just a business, but a movement where inclusivity illuminates innovation." The tension in the room shifted palpably. He could see the investors taking notes, exchanging glances. Just when he thought they would lean one way, Karen spoke again. "You've given us much to consider, but it's imperative we take a holistic view of this investment. Are you prepared for what comes next?" His heart hammered in his chest by the gravity of that implication. He could sense the door to colossal funding cracking open. But what might that require of him? Jordan knew now that he had to confront not just external biases against him, but the internal fears that plagued his psyche. Would he remain true to his mission in a world that could so easily co-opt his narrative? The question echoed in the silence that hung between them, tethering him to the precipice of a decision that could redefine his legacy forever. The silence in the conference room stretched like an elastic band, and Jordan could feel the weight of it pressing on him. He had made his stand, and now the stakes felt almost insurmountable. What would it mean to accept this funding? Could he keep his integrity intact while navigating a world that often twisted narratives for profit? He could see flickers of curiosity in the investor's eyes, mixed with skepticism. What if he was given a chance to rise, but at the price of losing his values along the way? Let's talk about scalability, Karen prompted, breaking the tension. How will you ensure the impact you're promising is not just a one-time effect, but grows over time? Her question cut deeper than he anticipated. It tugged at the very essence of his purpose. He had envisioned his technology as a long-lasting solution, but now doubt sprouted in the corners of his mind. Could he really deliver what he pledged? Scalability comes from community involvement, he answered, grounding his shaky resolve. We will actively engage those we aim to serve, ensuring their voices shape how our technology evolves. It's not just about us. It's about co-creating solutions. Something flickered in the room, and as he spoke, he understood he was no longer just a narrator of his own tale, but a potential architect of change. The way he would pivot his narrative to embrace collaboration rather than sell pure vision was an evolution he hadn't realized himself until that moment. Would they see this as an evolution, not just a pitch? As he watched their reactions, a realization blossomed. His growth as an entrepreneur had to marry with his personal development. Beyond securing funding, he had the opportunity to redefine how business success was viewed, especially in the tech industry. Let's consider your competition, Karen continued, her voice a steady anchor despite the flooding uncertainty. How do you plan to differentiate in such a saturated market? In that moment, the affirmations from previous presentations, the mentorship from Ava, and his own lived experience collided into a coherent response. Our differentiation lies in authenticity. Too many companies are built on the facade of diversity for consumer appeal, but our foundation is genuine. Our users won't just be our customers, they'll be our partners. Suddenly the gears shifted. The room transformed from a boardroom into a space of potential collaboration with each passing word. He could feel the skepticism dissipating, replaced by curiosity, yet doubt lingered like a shadow. What if they only allowed him to express his vision while pushing their agenda? He couldn't ignore that possibility. Striving for authenticity in a landscape rife with exploitation was a constant challenge. Your statement about partnership is intriguing, another investor chimed in. However, is your team prepared to embrace the complexities that come with it? Certain alliances can lead to unexpected setbacks. The question resonated, echoing his internal struggles. Had he truly assembled a team ready for this journey, or was he just naive to the industry's realities? Guilt spiked within him. He had focused on the tech so much that he sometimes overlooked the people who made it real. Yes, he responded after a heartbeat of reflection. We are ready. I've learned that the journey is as crucial as the destination. Challenges will arise, but I assure you that navigating those hurdles makes for stronger resilience. We learn, adapt, and grow with our partners. Hearing himself articulate that plan, he felt a new wave of confidence surge through him, mingling with the remnants of anxiety. The conversation continuously morphed. It was no longer solely a presentation. It felt like a dialogue of shared ambitions. As the pitch drew to a close, Jordan took a moment to breathe deeply. The deflection from external expectations, his own commitment to authenticity, and the forging of partnerships melded into a coherent vision. Before we wrap up, Karen said, raising an eyebrow, what do you think is your biggest challenge moving forward? Jordan leaned forward, courage rising. The challenge is to remain true to my mission, while navigating a world that often seeks to commodify integrity. I have to be vigilant. It was a risk to admit vulnerability, but in Chris's response, he sensed strength. If he maintained transparency and commitment, he could guide his venture to favorable heights. As they concluded, murmurs of interest filled the room, promising further exploration. But as he stepped out of the conference room, a tingling sense of foreboding seized him. The pitch may have turned in his favor today, yet facing the myriad forces attempting to mold his reality was just beginning. Was he truly prepared for the potential repercussions of this newfound opportunity? The air crackled with possibilities, both exhilarating and unsettling. Would the journey forward prove empowering, or would it reveal hidden fractures in his resolve? The weight of the world pressed down on Jordan as he stepped into the dimly lit corridor, the remnants of the pitch still buzzing in his ears. The sunlight that streamed through the tall windows was jarring. It held a promise of new beginnings, but also cast shadows of doubt. He felt woozy, caught between the thrill of possible funding and the gnawing fear that he might sacrifice his integrity. His phone buzzed, jolting him back to the present. Ava's name flashed across the screen, and he hesitated before answering. Would she celebrate the progress or question his choices? "Hey, Jordan, how did it go?" Her enthusiastic voice wrapped around him like a soothing balm. He smiled, realizing just how much he needed this conversation. "It went surprisingly well," he admitted, his thoughts racing ahead to the challenges that lay ahead. "But I feel like I'm on the edge of something bigger. Or maybe I'm just setting myself up for a fall." "What do you mean?" Ava's question was pointed, slicing through his doubts. "They liked the idea, but what if I can't deliver? I've put so much effort into building this vision, but I can't help but feel it's precarious. What if I'm not really the leader they need?" "You've built something unique, a reflection of your values. Don't underestimate that. Remember, you're not alone. You have your team. This is a partnership, not a solo mission," Ava reminded him gently. Her voice was a reminder of the strength they had cultivated together. He leaned against the wall, his mind sorting through the noise. The doubt was a persistent companion, gnawing at the budding confidence he had found in the meeting. But are they ready for this level of authenticity? What if they prefer to see me as just a face of their investment? "You won't know unless you take the leap, Jordan," she said. "You've already challenged norms. Continue to do so. Allow your team to drive the message as well. Your authenticity doesn't just define you, it defines them too. It may be their test as much as yours." Those words pierced him. He thought about his team. Had he truly engaged them, or had he unwittingly positioned himself as the solitary hero? The angst bubbled beneath the surface, and he made a snap decision. "Let's set a team meeting. I need to speak with them, share these thoughts," he said, feeling lighter even as the weight grew. "We need to align on our vision and adapt as a unit." As he hung up, a sense of urgency fueled his steps. He needed to get this right. The complexities of partnerships loomed large. The meeting room was bright and airy, filled with the soft hum of conversation. As he entered, his team's chatter quieted, eyes turning toward him. "Thank you for coming. I want to talk about how we approach our goals moving forward," Jordan began, forcing his nerves down. "Today's pitch was more than just funding for us. It's a chance to reshape how we operate." Murmurs of agreement floated through the room, and Jordan felt a wave of adrenaline. He dug deep, channeling the resolve he had spoken of earlier. "But I need to be honest with you all. I'm feeling a pressure that's making me question our path, how we define success. I need your input and your commitment as we move forward." Sinking into the feedback and ideas that flowed back and forth, he realized he wasn't just sharing his burdens. He was building connections that strengthened them. Joseph, an engineer, highlighted how incorporating user stories could keep their mission grounded, while Lisa, the marketing lead, suggested including grassroots initiatives in their outreach. Each comment built momentum, and for the first time, Jordan felt like a true leader rather than just a visionary. As they mapped out strategies and brainstormed ways to break conventional molds, a sense of clarity washed over him. Today marked not merely a shift, it was the dawning of a transformative moment, the beginning of a collaborative journey. "Let's push the boundaries together," he concluded, locking eyes with each of them. "Our mission is to disrupt the status quo, and the only way to do that is as a united front." But as he stepped out of the meeting, A thread of anxiety re-emerged. They had shared ideas, but would they all be ready when the inevitable pressure mounted? Would they stick together when conflicts arose? Amidst the rising chorus of hope, a chilling thought tangled with determination. The weight of authenticity demanded vigilance. The path ahead would not be linear. The time had come to face the unseen forces that would test him further, forcing him to confront who he truly was, as a leader in both the light and the shadows. Were they ready for the strains of real partnership? Would they rise together when the challenges got tough? The question lingered, and the air around him thickened with anticipation. The next few days passed in a blur for Jordan. The weight of the decisions ahead hung over him like a storm cloud, dark and looming. His team's willingness to collaborate had removed some of the immediate pressure, but he could feel a tension brewing beneath the surface. As they worked on refining their strategies and updating their pitch, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was only just beginning. During late-night brainstorming sessions, flickering fluorescent lights replaced the daylight, casting long shadows across spreadsheets and promotional materials. A sense of urgency propelled them forward, but it also fueled his anxiety. Faces grew tired, voices were strained, and yet no one wanted to admit they were on the brink of exhaustion. Was he pushing them too hard? He'd tried to embody openness, but doubts lingered. Was his insistence on authenticity and engagement merely a veneer? In moments of silence, he stilled his racing thoughts and attempted to imagine how his team truly viewed him. Was he the captain steering a ship through treacherous waters, or merely a figurehead masking a ship poorly built for the storm? At the same time, Jordan sensed a changing dynamic. He noticed that while his teammates were eager to contribute ideas, they were increasingly hesitant to challenge his decisions directly. Each time he presented a plan, he caught glimpses of something. Fear. Fear of conflict, fear of failure, fear of disappointing him. He ruminated on how he had unknowingly cultivated an environment that might stifle their voices. After yet another late night at the office, Jordan sat alone, staring blankly at the whiteboard, filled with written strategies, sketches, and what felt like whispered hopes. There was a voice inside him, demanding change. If he wanted them to be more than just followers, he reminded himself, it was time to open up, to be vulnerable about his own uncertainties. That evening, they reconvened for one final push before their pitch. As they settled around the conference room table, Jordan addressed the group, heart racing. Listen, we've been pushing hard and I respect that. But I need to share something. I'm feeling a weight too. I want us to create a culture where we can voice our doubts and fears. I don't want to lead from a place of confidence that silences anyone who thinks differently. It's important that we can be honest here. A silence fell, charged and palpable. Eyes flickered among the team. It was Joseph who finally broke the stillness. I appreciate you saying that. I think we all want to make this work, but sometimes it feels like our opinions might not be valued as much. Jordan felt heat rise to his cheeks. Their honesty was both a gift and a challenge. It's my role to ensure that everyone feels valued. Let's make it a priority to hold space for each other, to speak up and support one another, even if we might disagree. That's how we'll truly innovate. The conversation shifted, ignited by his admission. Real stories emerged. Lisa spoke about her fear of being sidelined during presentations. Joseph discussed his struggle to communicate complex ideas without feeling judged. As they shared vulnerabilities, Jordan felt something shift, an understanding that while he had a responsibility to lead, he also had an obligation to listen. Let's put this into practice, he suggested, feeling an unexpected excitement swell within him. Tomorrow, before we make our pitch, let's take 10 minutes to share what we're directly worried about with this presentation. No ideas too small. We handle this as a team, together. The participants nodded, their previous hesitation replaced by a sense of relief, an agreement that they were up against something shared rather than individual burdens. As the meeting came to a close, Jordan felt a wave of hope contrasting against the tension that filled the room. They had opened a door to a new dynamic, and he could only wonder how it would affect their collective moral compass. But just as exhilaration began to wash over him, a sudden email notification disrupted the moment, a message from his investor that hinted at unexpected changes in strategy. The tone was ambiguous, filled with potential threats that triggered another knot in his stomach. What lay ahead was no longer just about the pitch. It was about maintaining the integrity of their mission and keeping his team connected amidst the rising stakes. He had encouraged openness, but now he faced the fact that external forces could pull them apart. Would their newfound bond withstand the test of unexpected upheaval? The stakes were rising, and each could feel the shadow of doubt re-emerging, awaiting its moment to strike. Under the fluorescent hum of the office lights, Jordan's thoughts raced. The email from his investor loomed over him, a dark cloud threatening to spill over. He had opened the door to vulnerability with his team, but what if the incoming storm shattered the fragile connection they had just begun to forge? As dawn broke outside, Jordan found himself pacing the small confines of his office, rereading the email, each line more disheartening than the last. The thematic pivot hinted at a shift in strategy, one that seemed dictated rather than collaborative, as if rendering his recent attempts at fostering team engagement irrelevant. He clenched his jaw, trying to suppress the rising tide of frustration. Should he ignore the message and focus on the pitch, or confront the investor about the implications of these changes? Deep down, he knew he couldn't bury his head in the sand. The stakes had shifted. His leadership was already being scrutinized. The decisions he made would ripple through his team and influence every outcome. He thought once again of their earlier conversation, how so many had unburdened themselves, only to now face the uncertainty of an external force looming over their aspirations. Jordan took a deep breath, choosing to embrace the uncertainty rather than retreat. He gathered his thoughts, feeling an urge to communicate with his team as he peeked out the office door. Lisa and Joseph were already exchanging quiet, anxious looks in the conference room, maps of presentation slides scattered before them like debris from a shipwreck. "Hey, could we all meet?" Jordan called, a newfound steadiness in his voice. As they gathered around, the energy in the room felt charged with both anticipation and unease. "I received an email from the investor this morning," Jordan began, his heart racing, "and it requires us to think about how we want to proceed, not just with the pitch, but with our mission as a whole." The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Jordan's stomach churned as he perceived the shifting expressions on their faces. Was it worry, doubt, or something else entirely? "I know I asked all of us to share our fears about this presentation," he continued, "but it's important to acknowledge this new layer. We need to be honest about what we're feeling if we want to tackle any challenges ahead of us." He could see Lisa biting her lip, her eyes searching his for reassurance. "Are you saying we might have to change our strategy?" Joseph asked, a frown creasing his brow. "It's a possibility, yes," Jordan admitted. "But that doesn't mean we should compromise on what we genuinely believe in. I don't want us to shift course simply because someone else is uncomfortable with our vision. We need to identify how this affects us and what we stand for." His words hung in the air, the acknowledgement of a potential conflict echoing off the walls. Each member of the team wore their insecurities on their faces, crystallizing the fear of not just failure, but of losing their collaborative voice. "What if we take a step back?" Lisa suggested cautiously. "Let's redefine what our goals actually are, collectively. If we're going to adapt to any new expectations, we should align ourselves with what inspires us, not simply react." Jordan felt a surge of admiration for her insight, recognizing the potential for team autonomy in that perspective. "Absolutely, let's brainstorm," he encouraged, establishing a more grounded initiative. This was a defining moment not just for the team, but for his own development as a leader. He would need to balance the tensions of external pressures with internal cohesiveness. As they began discussing their shared values, Jordan sensed a shift, a collective reclaiming of agency. Ideas flowed more freely now, fostering a sense of solidarity against the world beyond their walls. Yet deep inside, he knew that even as they built unity among themselves, the specter of the investor's email loomed larger, requiring him to navigate adversarial waters without losing sight of the crew he was meant to guide. Would they emerge from the confrontation whole, or would the storm claim casualties among them? The direction of their collaboration hung in the balance, and Jordan understood that confrontations were inevitable. The real test of his leadership had just begun. The following morning, Jordan sat in front of his laptop, staring at the cursor blinking on the blank screen. His insides churned with anxiety as he contemplated how to address the complexities of the investor's email, a growing knot tightening with each passing moment. The choice was clear. He had to reach out to his investor, but how could he convey not only his concerns, but also the reaffirmation of his team's vision? Jordan felt a surge of determination. He knew this email could set a precedent for his approach to leadership. As he began typing, he focused on articulating an assertive yet collaborative response, a delicate balance of confidence and openness. "Dear investor's name," he typed slowly, "I appreciate your feedback and the direction you're suggesting. However, I believe it's crucial for us to thoroughly discuss the implications of any strategic pivot before we proceed. Our team has been working diligently to align our presentation with our core values, and a sudden shift could undermine our shared vision." He paused, his fingers hovering above the keys. Would this message truly reflect his intentions? What if the investor pushed back, dismissing his concerns? Steeling himself, he pressed send, simultaneously releasing a breath he'd been holding. His pulse quickened. This was both a risk and a challenge to his identity as a leader. As the day unfolded, the tension in the office hovered like fog, palpable and thick. Each team member wore their uncertainty like a cloak, and Jordan understood that their mood mirrored his own. He knew the forthcoming team meeting would be vital. They needed to summon the courage, not just to face their fears, but to transform them into fuel for collaboration. "Let's regroup in the conference room," he announced, a clarity emerging in his voice. He noticed how his team took a collective breath, their eyes fixed on him, looking for guidance. This was the moment he needed to solidify their purpose and ignite their passion. As they settled in, Jordan felt a wave of conviction wash over him. "I have communicated our concerns to the investor. I believe it's essential to uphold our commitment to our vision. We can't allow external pressures to dictate our path. We need to own our narrative." The response was immediate. Joseph leaned forward, a furrowed brow giving way to a spark of hope. "What do you propose we do if they push back?" "I propose we prepare," Jordan stated firmly. "Let's break into groups and refine our pitch, ensuring every element resonates with who we are as a team. If we need to make adjustments to fit within any new parameters, we can do so collaboratively, maintaining our core values." Jordan watched as their eyes brightened, the conversation igniting once more. As ideas bounced around, he took a moment to reflect on how significantly his leadership was evolving. No longer was he merely a facilitator. He was a driving force, nurturing the team's resilience. In the midst of the brainstorming, Lisa raised her hand. "What if we anticipate the investors' hesitations? If we can show how our approach aligns with their new direction without compromising our integrity, it could strengthen our argument." "That's exactly the kind of critical thinking we need," Jordan affirmed, feeling a surge of pride. "Let's incorporate that into our presentation. Our strength lies in our adaptability. We can be agents of change while staying true to ourselves." As the session continued, Jordan realized that every voice mattered in this endeavor. Their contributions fed his confidence, and he recognized the potential for collaboration to redefine their mission. Yet even amidst growth, a lingering question remained. What would the investor's response be? Would his team's hard work validate their vision, or would their newly forged unity fray in the face of opposition? As the meeting concluded and the team dispersed, Jordan's heart raced with the weight of the unknown. He understood that he was standing at the precipice of a pivotal moment. Leadership was not simply about navigating challenges, it was about guiding others through uncertainty to discover their strength. Jordan stared out the window, the skyline blurred by a creeping fog that mirrored his thoughts. The conflict was becoming inevitable, and he feared its potential impact on his team's newfound spirit. Was he prepared for the confrontation that lay ahead? He knew the moment had come to face not only the investor, but the very essence of his leadership. A rallying call to embody the vision they had created together was necessary. But what if the world beyond their walls swept it away? What if they were thrown off course just as they were gaining momentum? As he looked back at his team, a sense of purpose settled in. The first steps toward courage had been taken, but the real challenge was just beginning. And Jordan understood that this confrontation would define not only the company's future, but also his own growth as a leader. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the next chapter of his journey was about to unfold. The next morning, Jordan woke to the sound of his phone buzzing incessantly. Glancing at the notifications, his heart sank. The investor had replied. Adrenaline surged as he forced himself to take a deep breath. The subject line read, Clarity on future directions. He opened the email, anxiety carving itself into his gut. The investor's response was as expected. Cautious, methodical, and filled with calculated suggestions that veered away from their original mission. We believe a realignment toward immediate revenue streams would be prudent, it read. To Jordan, it felt like an ultimatum cloaked in professional language. The urgency of the situation settled heavily on his shoulders. As he stared at the words scrolling across the screen, he recognized a critical juncture in his leadership journey. This wasn't just about defending a strategic vision. It was a litmus test for his capacity to inspire his team under external pressure. Would he bend to the investor's demands, or would he double down on the values they had been nurturing? The office was already buzzing by the time he arrived. Team members greeted him with faint smiles, masking their concerns with light chatter. Deep down, Jordan could sense their collective anxiety. His leadership was being tested, and they were acutely aware of it. Let's meet in the breakout room, he instructed, noting Joseph's furrowed brow and Lisa's cautious demeanor. Jordan understood that their confidence hinged on his resolve. He entered the room, unable to shake the weight of the investor's words. Thank you all for being here, he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil roiling beneath the surface. I received an email from our investor expressing concern about our strategic direction. They're urging us to pivot toward immediate profitability. When he paused, the room fell silent. The heaviness thickened as his team processed the impact of his statement. Murmurs rippled through the group, and Jordan felt a pang of doubt creep in. Had he made the right choice in standing his ground? It's clear they're pushing for a quick win, he continued, measuring his words carefully. But I believe we need to ask ourselves, what does that mean for us? If we shift our focus, will we become what they want instead of who we are? He observed faces reflecting a mix of concern and determination. It was a fine line they were walking, and he knew they had to reclaim their narrative. Let's talk about ways we can facilitate a dialogue with the investor, he proposed. We might find common ground that validates both our objectives and their concerns. As ideas flowed freely, Jordan felt their collective energy shifting. They were no longer just responding, they were engaging thoughtfully with the possibility of reconciling their mission with potential investor interests. Lisa chimed in. What if we emphasize our innovative approach, highlighting how our unique solutions could create long-term growth, might align with their need for profitability without compromising our core values? Exactly, Jordan affirmed, feeling a blend of pride and clarity. As they dissected strategies, he could sense a palpable shift in the atmosphere. His leadership was transforming from mere delegation to genuine collaboration. The team began to generate enthusiasm as they explored potential angles for their next pitch. Even amidst the flickers of hope, doubt gnawed at his mind. Would their efforts be enough to convince the investor? The thought loomed large, but he could not afford to let fear dictate their next steps. As they concluded the meeting, Jordan felt a surge of optimism. He was no longer merely driven by the fear of failure. He was beginning to understand that true leadership meant guiding his team through these murky waters, challenging the status quo while remaining informed and adaptable. That night, as he walked home, his thoughts remained consumed by the challenges ahead. Standing firm could either solidify his vision or unravel their progress. He realized that this confrontation was not just about a business deal, it was a crucible for forging his identity as a leader. As he crossed the threshold of his apartment, a final question lingered. What strategies would he prioritize in the upcoming negotiation? What personal sacrifices might he need to make for the greater good of the team? With resolve, Jordan understood that something pivotal would happen in the meeting with the investor next week, and he was determined to face it head-on. The following week was an emotional marathon for Jordan. Each day felt like a careful balancing act between nurturing his team's resolve and preparing himself for the impending negotiation with the investor. Faced with the weight of their ambitions, he often found himself questioning the true cost of success. Would achieving profitability come at the expense of their ultimate vision? On Tuesday, Jordan arranged a strategy session to refine their proposal. Lisa, Joseph, and a few other key team members gathered in the conference room, a space that had become a sanctuary against the external pressures pressing in from the investor's office. The whiteboard was filled with notes and ideas, each scribble representing a piece of their collective fight for maintaining integrity amidst commercial pressure. Jordan observed Lisa drawing connections between their innovative solutions and potential market trends. She had grown more confident in sharing her insights within the group. If we clearly articulate how our products solve real-world problems, the investor might better understand the long-term benefits of sticking to our original approach, she suggested, her enthusiasm sparking a new level of energy in the room. Right, Jordan agreed, firing up the team's momentum. Let's think outside the box. This isn't just about pitching a product, it's a narrative about innovation, sustainability, and our overarching mission. But even as he spoke, the echo of the investor's words loomed large in his mind. Would they truly embrace their narrative or fold under financial pressure? In the days leading up to the meeting, moments of self-doubt stalked him like shadows. He would often wake in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the duality of his aspirations. What if their best efforts weren't enough? Meanwhile, his relationship with the team began to shift. He started sharing more of his insecurities, building a culture of vulnerability that encouraged transparency. A personal revelation struck him. Leadership wasn't simply about having all the answers. It involved standing alongside his team, sharing fears and concerns, and enabling collective resilience. When the day of the meeting finally arrived, the atmosphere in the office was electrifying. Jordan donned a crisp suit, an external reflection of the internal resolve he was building. He felt the adrenaline pulse through him as he approached the investor's boardroom. The air felt thicker as he steeled himself against the tide of uncertainty. As Jordan entered, he was taken aback by the formidable presence of the investor and their advisors. Despite the nerves swirling in his stomach, he was determined to seize the moment. He commenced with a confident introduction and outlined the vision they had collectively crafted. Every word carried the weight of countless discussions, brainstorming sessions, and the mounting pressure he had internally navigated. While immediate revenues are critical, we mustn't lose sight of our core values and long-term goals that define who we are, he articulated, his voice unwavering. He could feel the eyes of his team observing him, ready to rally behind their shared vision. The conversation ebbed and flowed, with Jordan tapping into their passion for the project. But as they discussed projections and roadmaps, a question from the investor rattled him. How can you assure us that your vision won't compromise our financial expectations? The room's tension shifted as silence enveloped them. Jordan took a deep breath, grappling with the implications of the inquiry. What if, instead, we focus on the potential of the innovative solutions we offer, instead of solely on numbers? We need to ask ourselves whether financial return and meaningful impact can coexist, he countered. Suddenly he realized this moment would define his leadership. The path to finding common ground wasn't merely about convincing the investors. It was also a testament to the identity and purpose of the team he had cultivated. As the negotiation unfolded, seeds of doubt lingered in his mind. Would his strength in vulnerability translate to success? As the conversation continued, he felt the pressure of their futures riding on this moment, demanding clarity. Would he rise to the challenge, or would fear dictate the outcome? As the meeting drew to a close, everyone sensed the potential for either conflict or collaboration. Jordan's heart was heavy with unanswered questions as the investor leaned forward, eyes narrowed, ready to deliberate. In that pivotal instant, Jordan understood that whatever came next would challenge not just their business model, but also the very foundation of his leadership journey. The moment of reckoning was upon him. How he responded to this ultimate test would determine everything. In the aftermath of the negotiations, Jordan Matthews emerged both battered and emboldened. The minutes hung heavy before the investors shared their decision, each heart-pounding moment forcing him to confront the realities of leadership in a world fueled by conflicting priorities. As the investor's voice filled the room, announcing their decision to support his vision with the necessary funding, a wave of disbelief surged within him. They had agreed to the terms, recognizing both the significance of authentic innovation and the vital role of financial soundness in shaping the future. Jordan couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come, transforming from a fearful leader striving to reclaim his narrative after a public disgrace to one who embraced authenticity amid pressure. Over the following weeks, Jordan's newfound confidence permeated the team. He utilized the investment not just for immediate growth but as a catalyst for deeper change. The ethical underpinnings of their startup now matched the vigor of their ambitions, creating a space where creativity could flourish alongside accountability. Each meeting showcased a shift in dynamics, as everyone felt empowered to contribute, from Joseph's engineering strategies to Lisa's innovative marketing techniques. The team began to craft a comprehensive outreach program that emphasized community involvement. Their blended approach of technology and genuine partnership drove home the realization that their success was not merely measured by profits, but by the tangible impact they could achieve together. With Jordan's multidimensional growth, he tackled the challenge of balancing profitability with purpose, paving the way for authentic representation in the tech industry. By the end of the quarter, the results were monumental. Revenues skyrocketed beyond projections, proving that purposeful companies could thrive. Their cooperative efforts had established a reputation that attracted like-minded partners, garnering attention from renowned industry figures and securing additional support. The collaborative spirit that had emerged from those tense initial negotiations had not only provided financial rewards, but fortified their vision with sustainable integrity. As he stood on stage at a prominent technology conference presenting their success story, Jordan felt a palpable change within himself. This pitch was more than just numbers. It was a personal testament to resilience and transformation. He conveyed stories of personal struggle, growth, and the vital importance of inclusivity, making it clear that impact was the cornerstone of their operations and profit would follow. The audience responded with rapturous applause. Jordan realized that this acknowledgement from such a prestigious crowd was more than validation. It was the culmination of his journey, a journey that had reshaped his understanding of leadership. No longer was he merely chasing an elusive concept of success. He had established an emerging narrative, one that was professional and personal in equal measure. Jordan Matthews had not only conquered his fears, but had also proven himself a capable leader, respected and recognized within the industry. He had turned adversity into a stepping stone towards a brighter future for himself and his company. The lesson was profound. True success is achieved by standing firm on core values while navigating the complexities of business. In that moment, an overwhelming sense of pride washed over him. He had built a team, fostered an inclusive culture, and established a vision where authenticity was paramount. As he stepped off the stage, the celebratory atmosphere buoyed his spirits. Resilience, he knew, would continue to be tested as new challenges loomed on the horizon. Yet he felt certain in this truth. He would face them with unwavering integrity, propelled by a steadfast commitment to his team and their collective mission. Now was the time to inspire others who faced their own struggles. The adventure had just begun, and he was ready to lead the charge. If you connect with stories of personal transformation and challenges overcome, subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't wait even one more second to share this inspiring conclusion with at least 5 friends who need to see it. Leave a like now to help us spread these powerful narratives and comment your reactions about this incredible journey. Your engagement fuels our mission, and you are an essential part of our community.